Hello everyone, in this video I'll be taking a look at Peppermint OS. Now a couple of years back the lead developer, Mark Greaves, PCNetSpec, tragically passed away. But it seems like community have picked up the development and continued on. They've changed things, they have now got it based on Debian instead of Ubuntu, but it is still using the XFCE Desktop. So it's good to see they have picked up development, things have continued, and they have tried doing documentation towards the distribution. Very important that. User guides, documentation, videos. Does make it good for new users. And documentation is one of those things that is often neglected. Definitely speaking about that from my own point of view. But yes, good to see documentation. When you first start Peppermint OS, you're greeted with a welcome screen. And the first option there, install a web browser. I'm thinking, really? You've got to install a web browser? There's not one pre-installed by default? Well, no there isn't. You do have to install a web browser. Well, I guess that takes away the discussion of which browser is best, because you can decide that for yourself and go with it. So there are a few browsers listed here and you can install them. Well, it's point and click for the installation. So yeah, I could select to install Firefox. Do we really want to do that? Oh, no, let's go for Midori. Let's try Midori instead. So yeah, select Midori and install, and yep, installation is taken care of. And there are some other software applications you can install through this method, although the list isn't exactly that plentiful. But I suppose it is some basics. Oh, and they do have the option to install Snap and Flatpak packages, but obviously not enabled by default. Since I'm at this welcome screen, I might as well continue on and we'll take a look at some of these other extras you can install. So there's themes, icons and wallpapers. I've gone through and installed some of these wallpapers already. So yeah, I'm just going to cancel that. There's a link to Peppermint Hub, which is just an easier way of navigating the control panel type options. That is a way of accessing the XFCE options and changing like a lot of the default settings. That's fine. And finally there is the release notes. But okay, let's carry on with looking around at this system. You have a traditional layout to the desktop. You've got the application launcher on the bottom left hand side panel, and there's a few options on the right hand side. So that's the desktop switcher. There's notification here about updates. How typical, I was taking a very good look at this yesterday, made a few notes and didn't think to look at updates before I started today's video. But there you go. At least that's the updates done. Very straightforward. But it is a very basic view in a terminal window. But hey, basic and functional. And yet there's time and date on the bottom right hand side. In terms of applications on here, there wasn't exactly too many things really. There are quite a few things in the internet, but that's because I installed a few different web browsers on here. Hey, I had the option and I used it. Oh, there's Midori, which I just installed earlier in this video. Multimedia, well, there's nothing much really. Settings, yeah, there's all the different settings. That's the other way of accessing them outside of the control panel type layout. So yeah, it is very sparse here, but that's because the way this distro is meant to be used is more as an internet connected system. Think more like the Chromebooks. So if I go back to this ICE tutorial, site-specific browsers and ICE applications. So an intro to site-specific browsers. So Peppermint makes heavy use of what are called site-specific browsers, or SSBs. Essentially, many modern web applications offer much functionality, and SSBs allow these apps to be more directly integrated with a desktop. And although it's talking about ICE here for the browsers, but yeah, there are other browsers which are compatible with it. So it's a way of having a website as more of an application, but making heavy use of the browser instead of an app, which you would use like on a mobile phone. I'm really happy with that. I hate using all these various apps, so I would rather use the browser for everything. I've got no suitable browser detected, so I would need Chrome or Chromium in order to create these site-specific browsers. It's weird though, they give you the choice, but then if you want to create these site-specific browsers, then you're going to have to use Chromium. You don't have to use it this way, it's just one of the use cases they're suggesting. Let's try again. So let's try and create one here. So we'll try a video platform. I just want to select any old thing for the time being. I would rather a video here, but stock music library, that'll do. That will do. Or use site favicon. We'll try that. Ah, excellent, it's found it. An error, the site web address has been detected. It's possibly the site is down or unavailable right now. Come on. So you want me to type in the full address, don't you? That's what you're saying. I would have thought that would work. Works fine. Well, there you go. That's a site-specific browser for this video website here. I guess we shouldn't mention it too loud on YouTube. They've included an application called HBlock, which does blocking of certain websites. Again, we probably shouldn't mention this on YouTube. The things you can't talk about, it does make it very difficult, but let's say it's a conflict to Google's business, and maybe they wouldn't like these things blocked. So 204,000 domains have been added to the /etc/host file, which is a very inefficient way of doing things, but let's go with it for the moment, and I'll show you the etc host file. Need a few more lines than that, won't we? The problem is it's very inefficient to block this way compared to blocking via a DNS server. Because blocking with a DNS server, you could simply block an entire domain and not have to worry about all the various subdomains on the website. I've got a good example here from googleadservices.com. So yeah, looking at just googleadservices.com, well, I mean, it would be good not to have to visit that domain at all, but because you had to do specific subdomains, you've had to list all those various options there. But because it's focused on the specific subdomain, what if I change it slightly, or what if Google changes it slightly, and instead of using pagead2.googleadservices.com, they use pagead3.googleadservices.com? Well, you didn't get blocked by yourself, you got blocked by a DNS server on my network. And I can show you the effect of what it was like just browsing the internet for a couple of hours. Because if I open up a web browser and yeah, I'll go to this page right here. So as NoTrack is the DNS server, which is doing all the blocking. If I look in the logs and looked for anything that's blocked by NoTrack, essentially that means that it was NoTrack that did the blocking and it did not get blocked, in this case by Peppermint OS or HBlock. Yeah, as it turns out, there were quite a few things that had to be blocked via DNS. So yeah, so it just shows that HBlock is kind of a really cheap way of doing domain blocking, but it's cheap, inefficient, and not perfect. I know I'm spending a bit of time on that feature, but that is because they have included it. And all you have to do to make it work is you just run HBlock through the terminal. And Peppermint OS seems to be a perfectly reasonable system to use if you're interested in going more down the site-specific browser route rather than all-out application usage. In terms of responsiveness there, seems perfectly reasonable. Yeah, no complaints there. Yeah, that was a look at Peppermint OS. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all later.